Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our digital field service webinar on streamlining work order to cash and improving customer experience. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few notes about our webinar platform. Today's webinar will be recorded and shared with all attendees by email. We encourage you to submit your questions at any time throughout the presentation using the Q&A widget at the bottom of your console. We'll do our best to answer them as we go along if time allows. Otherwise, we'll take care of that at the end during our Q&A session. So for today's agenda, we'll be hearing from Salesforce on their point of view in the work order to cash gap. We'll examine the common challenges and pain points we see customers experiencing, followed by our panel discussion on streamlining the process, analytics, and AI. We'll tell you a little bit about who D'Absolute is and show you a demo of the SFS to billing multi-cloud solution. We'll wrap up with how we can help you with your digital transformation. And lastly, as mentioned, the Q&A session. So on today's webinar, just to give you an introduction to the speakers, we have Greg Fiorindo, Vice President of Revenue Cloud for Manufacturing, Energy, and Utilities at Salesforce. Greg is an 18-plus year Salesforce veteran who currently leads the Revenue Cloud sales team aligned to the Salesforce's commercial, manufacturing, distribution, automotive, and energy customer segments. He and his team are chartered with helping customers drive improved controls, efficiencies, and intelligence across revenue and commercial operations using the Salesforce platform. We have Stephen Smith, VP of Industry Solutions at D'Absolute. Stephen has over 25 years of experience, including 20 years as part of Click Software's global field service operation, defining and delivering mobile workforce management solutions around the globe and across industries. Aiding service organizations to optimize the use of their field resources, improve operational awareness, streamline process, and establish controls while ensuring flexibility, variability, and user engagement are enabled within their operations. Eric Nelson is our Salesforce Manufacturing Solutions lead at D'Absolute. He joined D'Absolute with 22 years from Caterpillar to become a manufacturing solutions lead and part of the Manufacturing Center of Excellence. He has led dozens of Salesforce implementations and served in multiple roles over the past 12 years, while also building strong relationships with business partners as an enterprise CRM product owner and applying both security and governance processes to transform growth. We have Issam Nassim, who's Manager of Solutions Consulting at D'Absolute. As manager at D'Absolute and over 18 years of experience, Issam brings a wide range of experience in various domains, including pre-sales, marketing, product marketing, and sales. His passion for crafting solutions that fit customers' requirements is a major driver for his work. Issam's focus is on the D'Absolute's revenue practice that includes Certinia's applications and Salesforce Revenue Cloud. And with that, I'll hand this over to Greg to kick us off today. Thank you.
Thanks, Erica, and thanks to the D'Absolute team for having me, and thanks everybody who's joining this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you're attending from. We at Salesforce are very fortunate to have a very large and diverse customer base. We're out talking to customers, hundreds, thousands of customers, and one of the things we're observing out in the marketplace, and my domain, as Erica said, is manufacturing, distribution, automotive, energy, but really it cuts across all industries, that our customers and our customers' customers have these amazing digital experiences in their consumer world. And the experiences they receive are personalized, digital, they're self-service. They value when their providers understand who they are, what their buying patterns are, what their preferences are, and they deliver a consistent experience across every touch point. And within our customers, and even within our own employee base, we know that there's a higher expectation, that they don't want to, folks don't want to come to work and be engaged in manual processes or be pouring through spreadsheets, spending time on non-value added work. And in fact, the stakes are actually relatively high here, that it's not enough just to have a great product or a great service. Nearly 90% of the customers that we survey say that the service, the experience, the buying experience, the service experience are as important as the product or service. And so we think this is critical that customer expectations are higher than they've ever been. And trying to transform, if we could go to on the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about why it can be really challenging to transform in this domain that we're going to talk about today, transforming the customer experience, transforming the partner experience. It's really difficult when we've got unintegrated systems and bespoke tools that have been specialized to meet a very specific function like field service or like knowledge management. And it's really critical, especially in today's world where many of the companies on this call have grown through acquisition. They've acquired multiple instances of ERPs, sometimes from the same vendor, sometimes from differing vendors. And how do we get an accurate picture of a customer and partner when we've got these bespoke systems, these silos of information? And we think the business impact for solving this is really substantial, right? There's employee efficiency, just giving our employees the information needed to perform their work more efficiently. Oftentimes, when these processes break down between field service and finance, there's substantial revenue leakage, margin leakage, delays in cash flow, and ultimately it's about the customer experience. At the end of the day, we want to deliver an experience that our customers expect. So the next, if we go to the next slide, we're going to now pinpoint specifically in this domain of field service and then determining what work needs to be billed, the process that oftentimes sits somewhere between CRM, where maybe your sales and your service teams work, and ERP, where you're doing billing and supply chain and all your financial management. And we just see this a lot, that oftentimes, customers will start with this CRM pillar and ERP pillar, and then in between, in the area of field service, there may be a point solution, or that point solution may be poorly integrated. So we've had to create a manual process to bridge the lack of integration between systems. And then one of the most ubiquitous business tools out there to stitch this all together it can be that dreaded spreadsheet, right? The lack of timely information to give us insight into how efficiently our processes are running, from the instantiation of a customer request for service all the way through to the point where we need to present an invoice, collect the cash, process the payment. We're really here today to talk about how the Salesforce platform and how DiAbsolute can solve the challenges that come along with these types of operating environments. And this is where I'd like to invite Steve. So Steve, you and DiAbsolute have been doing this type of work, and you've seen these type of operating environments for dozens of years now. What do you see as the most common challenges and pain points related to environments like this?
Great, thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. You mentioned a couple earlier on. There's certainly, let's say, a lot of potential, which translates into a lot of challenges and a lot of pain points, especially when field service is involved. I won't get into the depth and breadth of the broader field service spectrum, but I'll keep focused. And I wanted to provide a few examples to help set the context for the later demo and the later discussion. And so I'll focus on field service in the context of streamlining order to cash, and tons of opportunity in that whole stage of the process, right? You get the stage of taking in work, assigning and tracking work, executing work, and then closing work out, which means you're going to get paid for the work, right? And so the first of these, I'd say, disconnected systems. You mentioned it, Greg. That I think this is the primary cause of a heavy administrative burden within organizations. I can tell you, example-wise, about 2 years ago, I spoke to an organization. They were having huge difficulties retaining employees at the dispatch personnel, the planner personnel level. I think the longest tenure they had for that role was about a year, right? And it was the old swivel chair thing, right? There was a lot of different systems. They had to go to a separate system for field service. They had to go to a separate system for finance, for materials management, permitting stuff. They had the swivel chair. They had to jump into emails, etc. caused a headache. They and the expectations that you mentioned earlier, Greg, led the dispatchers planners to find something else, right? Which left a huge gap in the way of that organization. So making them prone to errors, prone to delays, prone to billing contention as well. So that's one of the primary. Another one I see popping up, probably top 2 or 3 over the last 5-10 years, is usability, right? This is top of mind for really good reason. We all expect that consumer experience in everything we do, even the applications that we work with at work. It's interesting, right? And often when it isn't that way, when we're not getting the usability, the accessibility we expect from our devices, we avoid them. And so I've got a friend whose father's in field service, and he just wants to get the work done, right? He wants to get out there. He's got a schedule of work to do. He wants to provide good customer service. And often he'll get exposure to a customer who asks for something else, right? Or he shows up and it's not exactly the same thing that he was assigned to do. Typically he'll avoid the system because it's getting in the way. And he'll just give away that service, that extra part, those materials, and he'll go on, right? He'll go on with the rest of his day and do his other work. This obviously reduces revenue, provides revenue leakage, sets a poor customer expectation, which lends towards bad customer sat later on. And then, of course, you've lost track and trace, so you can't improve the operation, understanding what is actually being done out in the field. So this is a high one on the list in terms of challenges and pains. I say, there's another one, disparate field services, billing systems, et cetera, but manual steps in the process and the lack of automation and more so optimization is an area where I've seen a lot of pain across the years. And very recently still, there's organizations out there that they'll have a static approach to producing the schedule, right? Just because they need to plan, et cetera, put things in place and they don't have the ability to react, they'll put a static schedule in place at best a day before, sometimes 2, 3. I know an organization that does it 5 days before, and they'll lock it in. And then they'll have a separate team and or process to handle the things the exceptions that invariably occur, right? And so they're losing out by including delays, added costs for these other resources, other process. It's not very efficient. They won't even be aware of the commitments to the customer. So they can't keep the commitments to the customer or address priorities as same day type of work pops into the schedule. So big problem there. And then lastly, heavy, and probably not least, definitely, is heavy revenue leakage. Typically, I've seen this based on inaccuracies during the collection of the details from the field service, what was done, what materials were used, et cetera. But it's also due to a delay in that lack of accessibility to the details, right? So I can tell you from my experience in the oil field services space, it's typical to have 20% leakage because of these conditions, right? Just not knowing what you got, where you got, what you did, and having it available. And customers are smart. Customers figure this out. And a particular oil field services customer I was working with, global one, huge one, they were experiencing that 20% leakage. Their customers were pushing back, and their only recourse was, what if we take 10% off? How about 15? How about 20? Will you pay if we take the 20% off? And trying to cut down on DSO. So a lot of potential out there based on those changes, those challenges, and those pain points. I hope I provided some good context for the discussion later on as we get into streamlining that process, and then the AI analytics discussion and the place the place AI and analytics has in helping with the process. So pass back to you, Greg.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Stephen. That's very helpful. I think helpful context. This is certainly consistent with the types of challenges we see across the industry in Salesforce. In fact, I liked your story. I recently had a service technician come and fix my water filtration system here at the house, and threw in a new faucet as part of it. It didn't, that's a really sort of tangible example of giving away something that I may have been willing to pay for, but I was thankful nonetheless. So I think you've hit on some really really important pains, and that kind of leads us into our the first panel discussion. And so, Stephen, for companies that are in attendance today, and any company that's concerned about revenue leakage, service productivity, and really the scalability of that order to cash process, I mean, where do you start? Where would you guide a customer to start? I like your kind of work intake, performance of work, but how do you start an initiative like this?
Yeah, I think from that whole scale of the process, I think I would focus heavily on the allocation of work and the tracking of work segment of it. I think this is where there's a tremendous amount of value. I typically, talking to customers along the way, I say, keep focused on precision, agility / variability, and intelligence through that process, right? So don't have a process where you've abstracted everything just to make it quick and easy to get things done. Technology is here and supports quick and being even quicker than an abstracted approach, but much more precise. So consider the skills, the tools, the parts, the certifications, vaccinations, visas, time-bound things. We consider the weather conditions, the actual and predictive driving times between jobs. This will allow organizations to get more precise in what they do, and also help feed other processes that allow for continual improvement. I think the second thing I mentioned, intelligence, applying intelligence, I think is very important as part of this allocation of work stage. There's a lot of capabilities out there in the product. Salesforce Field Service has a great deal of innovations and capabilities built in the product, proven across industries. Things like bundling, being able to logically pull together work based on its location, the asset involved, the customer involved, that ultimately ends up in not disturbing the customer by having 3 guys show up 3 different days, right? Causing a lot of problem on that side, but also reducing the number of truck rolls, et cetera, by applying a level of intelligence. It also provides a level of speed. So that thing I mentioned before about a separate team managing the same day work, all the work can be managed in the same system, and the system having absolute detailed awareness of everything that was going on can interject work and push it into the schedule if it makes sense and aligns to the business goals. So applying that intelligence. And then the one that's often missed out, Greg, is addressing variability within the organization. I can tell you, I worked with a very large capital equipment organization, and they had many different business units. And their first inclination was to say, hey, deploy field service for us in the flavor that meets our biggest need in that part of the business. And they assumed it had to be all the same flavor as part of that delivery. It took some time to talk them out of it. So I'd say make sure you're addressing the individualized nature, the variability within the business, and continuing to address it. This is going to draw in users, and it's also going to draw out the benefits by being very precise and very specific to the approach.
Assam, I know you've got a point of view based on your experience at Konica Minolta, and both a process view, but even like a systems implementation view. Can you talk a little bit about some of the pains you saw in that work order to bill flow, and what steps can be taken to automate?
Sure thing, Greg. And yes, during my tenure at Konica Minolta, both the field service organization and the finance teams were running on SAP ERP solution. However, it was implemented at 2 different times by 2 different teams. And that created a lot of challenges internally to basically report on these services tickets, being able to respond to clients quickly when it comes to generating those invoices for the services that got delivered and whatnot. And obviously, it was a pain point for all the parties involved, not only for the field service, for the finance, but also for the customers who are interacting with the teams. Obviously, the lack of visibility or ability to respond to client escalations quickly, whether it's financial related, whether it's service related, there were a lot of pain points when it came to these points.
So it sounds like the key takeaway there is design with more the end-to-end process in mind rather than these siloed implementations, even if they're on the same technology platform.
100%. It's all about, working with one partner to have that vision end to end and being able to deliver on it accordingly.
Yeah. Eric, you shared some very tangible examples with me related to your time at Caterpillar, specifically around revenue leakage in this field service operation. Could you share some of your experiences there?
Yeah, you bet. So I was fortunate to spend over 2 decades at Caterpillar before joining DAbsolute, and field service is a big part of the business at Cat dealerships all over the world. Yet the systems and processes are still fragmented. We often hear issues where a field service tech isn't properly reimbursed for their parts and labor, and or there's revenue leakage because the tech won't know if a part's under warranty. So we might not be recovering appropriate costs through the customer invoice. The visibility of the customer's asset history isn't there, and that can lead to inefficient work visits. And it's not just working to streamline order to cash, it's tracking the line items and accurate prices all the way through. So say there was a discount offered early on in the quoting process. Sometimes we see that lost by the time it gets to invoice because the standard price book is referenced instead, or product prices from external systems are incorrectly referenced for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, so I think we all agree that if we're going to get to a point of intelligence and analytics around this end-to-end process, we need to focus on the process and the data intake across the life cycle. And I see this a lot. Even when the field service operation is highly optimized for service productivity, at the end of the process, there's still somebody in finance who's looking at a work report and rekeying the information into the financial system to bill the customer properly and to put the revenue into the general ledger. And so I agree. It starts with the process and automation and capturing data at each phase so that the downstream users have what they need to perform their work. So let's move to the next one, which I think is a really exciting one. Like the industry trends, you can't read any sort of industry trend without the topic of artificial intelligence coming up. So we've automated the process of field service. We've normalized the data, right? So when we think about Steve, your experience in field service is really valuable here. We've talked a little bit about capturing and normalizing the data. Where do you think the greatest opportunity here is? Like, if we're going to normalize this data with the intention of using either predictive AI or generative AI, what are the key metrics? How do you think about delivering insight and analytics in the stream of work in this field service to billing kind of scenario?
Makes sense. I've had customers who, I don't know if they stole the saying, but what gets measured gets done. What gets measured and fed back gets done better and better and better. That applies to AI, applies to awareness, operational awareness in the business. I think these are key things. And I can't tell you how many times, or probably every customer I've gone into from a field service perspective, they didn't trust their data. So data is kind of fundamental to all of it. And you said it has to be normalized, has to help out. And attacking the problem of data at the point of service and along that whole thread is critically important. So you want contextual interfaces. You want AI feeding your call center resources as they're going through and making decisions, interacting with customers. They're not going to miss things along the way. This is going to include increase the precision, the awareness as it feeds down the change of getting scheduled appropriately, tracked appropriately, executed appropriately, and collecting the details appropriately as well. So you want to be able to provide contextual, user appealing interfaces that understand the variability within the organization to make sure you're collecting clean data at the point of entry that also feeds all this other stuff. And there's a host of capabilities already available, right? Especially in the SFS field service side that help you on the call center side with documentation, with engaging customers on the line, On the dispatch side, smart machine learning information to help hone in on the job duration itself and improve, as well as in the field side to make sure they got the right data, the right information in the hand, and driven through an appropriate work plan process. But I think it has to do with data, keeping the data clean, keeping the engagement with the user, so they're using the system appropriately so it can validate the data and get it back in.
Yeah. Assam, I know you're an analytics guy. What types of analytics and what kind of predictive AI do you think represent the greatest opportunities in this work order to bill, order to cash domain?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there are a lot of examples where you could use predictive AI and analytics to run your business. I mean, some of the few examples here is assisting finance with the DSO, or days sales outstanding predictions. Being able to predict future billings impacts on field service operations. Obviously, if you don't have the data in place, you can't run those analytics and predictive AI tools. In addition to that, there are other examples related to focusing on business with the recurring revenue. What happens to those, and how can you make promotions and programs cater to these businesses so that you can get them more and more services from them. And finally, running predictive analytics on break-fix visits, such as upcoming preventive maintenance or warranty renewal. All these are great examples of where you could use predictive AI and analytics based on the data that you captured in the process.
Yeah, and I think having all of the data on a single platform across this business process is really what will unlock a ton of value here. In fact, so the Salesforce finance team, as an invoice gets dropped, they immediately apply a likelihood to pay on time score, and we direct our very, very, very small collections team at the highest risk invoices. So, Eric, I know you've got some generative AI use cases that you're excited about in this work order to bill process. What are some of the things that excite you about the potential for generative AI here?
Yeah, good discussion so far. I mean, there's no doubt that clean, fresh data is the key to feeding both analytics and AI, and that's why products like Data Cloud are increasingly more important. But on the generative side of things for field service, we know that there's time lost in tasks like documentation with work reports. AI can help service techs write up a visit report or summarize instructions for a customer based on knowledge articles for fixes or repairs. And then even on the billing side, generative AI can create invoices. It can pull data into or out of invoices, and it can even look for fraud based on previous payment patterns and data.
Yeah, I love that idea of like a generative outbound message in the dunning and collections process, right? Taking taking out redundant work that I think can be improved with generative AI. So great discussion, folks. I really appreciate that. Assam, I'd love for you to talk just a little bit about DiAbsolute's capabilities and kind of what you do in this space, so that customers on this call sort of understand if there's a need here, how you might be able to help.
Absolutely. And with DiAbsolute's over 20 years of experience implementing cross-cloud applications on the Salesforce platform, ranging from field service to billing and beyond, we can help our clients. We do this because we have quote-to-cash experts, in addition to a wide range of industry subject matter experts, or SMEs, in this field. Not only do we cover the technical aspect, but we also cover the business and financial aspects of the solution and their impacts on the upstream and downstream applications. This knowledge empowers us to engage with you, the client, to challenge you on your status quo and provide recommendations and best practices. And then finally, our proven track record and our hyper-focused Salesforce CSAT score of 4.9 is a testament of DiAbsolute's experience and knowledge in this domain.
Awesome. We're getting to my favorite part of this presentation. DiAbsolute has invested more than as much or more as any partner in the Salesforce ecosystem around this work order to bill domain, the combination of Revenue Cloud and Salesforce Field Service. And I know that you've essentially built, configured using the platform a work order to bill prototype that can show the vision for what clients can achieve in this realm. And Eric, I can't wait to see what you're going to show.
Yeah, terrific. Let me set this up for you guys. We're going to be dealing with certain personas going forward as we tell this story. So first we have Petra. She's our account executive. She's responsible for the relationship with Conley Brothers, who's our customer in this case. We'll also see her act as the field service dispatcher to kick things off. And then at the end, she's going to come back and monitor the order to cash health dashboard at the end for insights. Jonas, he's our field service technician. He not only completes work orders and logs parts and labor, but he's empowered to look up customer warranties and even spin up quotes on sites for repairs. Oscar manages our invoicing, so he'll be billing customers on the appropriate schedule. And Simon, our customer, works with Acme to approve quotes for desired products and services, as well as provide payment when invoices are posted.
So as Eric is loading up the demo, we're going to be sharing with everyone a marketing asset called Demo Boost after the call. It's a self-paced, self-guided demo or walkthrough with notes and focus areas on everything that you're going to see today. So that's going to be a great asset for you guys to go through later on. Eric?
Yeah, you bet. Thank you, Sam. So here we are. We have Petra in our system. With the Conley Brothers account open here. Simon, our customer, needs some assistance, so he's going to call up Petra. Petra pulls up their account record. She's going to verify their location. We see they're here in Kentucky, just south of Cincinnati. And then Petra's also going to act as our dispatcher here and take a look at her service tech schedule for the day. So let's go ahead and pull that up. So over here in field service, in the field service app, we can hover. We got a couple of technicians in the field here, John and Jonas. So Jonas looks like he just is wrapping up a job right now. We can hover over here and see that he's in Louisville, which is terrific. That's just a drive down the road from the Cincy area where he needs to head to next. So that's good. We can also kind of see from the map that's where he's located too, in the Louisville area, specific to this particular service appointment. So that's terrific. Petra's going to go ahead back here and she's going to work through and schedule Jonas for this. He's going to get a notification of the pending service appointment. And I want to point out that, of course, as mentioned earlier, with all this data in place, you could absolutely leverage Einstein for this type of analysis and scheduling. All right, so we'll do more with work orders a little bit later. Next, I'm going to switch over to our field service technician, Jonas.
So as Eric is switching over, you're going to see two mobile applications in play. First is the Salesforce mobile app, which you all are likely familiar with, but also the Salesforce Field Service mobile app, which is designed specifically to support field technicians' responsibilities. It also operates offline to allow technicians to work in remote areas. And it will sync back when it comes back online. So here it is. Back to you, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you. So Jonas also has access to the Conley Brothers account here. What he would do from here is navigate through and pull up the warranty to check that there's an issue for a problem that's been happening on site. He's there and he learns that Conley Brothers has a skid steer loader experiencing an issue. It's jerky. There's some uncommon banging noises. And to Jonas, this sounds like a lift cylinder issue. So he'll go here and he'll pull up the customer's warranty. I have a bookmark to that. But once we access that, go through here, we see that it has indeed expired, but this is important information to know so that Jonas can come back and spin up a quote for this repair. So again, Jonas is empowered to do that. Normally, he would do that from the quick quote button on the Conley Brothers account record here, which is at the top. I've already created one ahead of time for reference to save some time. So let's go grab that. So this is going to load up here. We can go into edit lines. We'll see that Jonas has applied a 8% discount for here. And on the standard screen, we can see that this comes bundled with a break fix. This is a required flat fee for this as well. So when you're installing a cylinder, there's a fee that goes along with the break fix services. So these are bundled together. So he's able to work through this here. He's going to present this to Simon, our customer. Simon's going to approve that quote. He can use DocuSign for this or any other e-signature tool here. All right, so now I'm going to shoot over to Salesforce Field Service mobile app. What happens from there is we automatically have a service appointment created here. Of course, it makes sense for him to take care of it because he's there. So we're over here. Jonas is going to pull that up. He's going to go into the service appointment, and there's a tab within here for products that shows us what's required for the job. Sometimes certain jobs have products required. So at the bottom, we have a view all products required button. If we click this, we're going to see that, yes, the break fix labor is indeed required for this. That's something standard. As we saw through the quote, it's going to go ahead and be added here. So let's click add. And then the next thing he can do over the course of this job is consume products as well. So we know that this is going to require a lift cylinder. He can go in here and pick one off of his truck that he has in the field. That's the second one here, and then go ahead and save. All right, so that applies the services that he was on there. At the same time or in parallel over the course of the visit, he would be logging his time on the job. So he's going to use these buttons at the bottom that we have for interacting with the menu. We have this actions section at the bottom. He's going to go ahead and click arrived, start work to go ahead and kick things off here. If we hit next, that's going to go ahead and log the start time automatically on the ticket. Also, when we're done, we can go to finished work. And that's going to log the end time on it. So now if we go back to the overview tab here and click into the details, we can see that we have the duration logged on here, and we have the actual start and end time logged on here. So that's great. We got everything logged here, all that worked. He's going to go ahead and he did everything that he needs to do here. He's going to head off to his next assignment, knowing that he's going to be accurately reimbursed for his parts and labor. All right, so from here, I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to Oscar, our billing specialist.
So as Eric is switching over to Oscar, the billing specialist, note how an activated order already exists by virtue of Jonas, the field service technician, closing out his service appointment, which closes the work order and activates the order record for Oscar to review.
Yeah, excellent. All right, so here's Oscar. This is the order that as Sam mentioned, we have created automatically here. He's going to look over some of these details. He'll hover over order products. We see that these match what was quoted. They've carried forward onto the order. So we got the parts and labor represented. Just notice again how there's no data reentry here. And you can automate any aspects of this if you want to prepare for the invoicing, or you can have the billing specialist manually verify that it looks okay. But in this case, everything looks good to him. And so the next thing he would do is go ahead and generate an invoice. He's going to do that through clicking the Bill Now button. So this is going to run against the products and details on the order and generate an invoice that we now have attached to this ticket here. Let's go ahead and click into this invoice. Again, we can see here that the invoice lines, they match up. All of this is carrying forward. So the next thing we can do is click post. This essentially just sends an email to the customer with a link to collect payment. Also notice on the screen here that if Oscar were collecting information on behalf of the customer, he has a link to that too, so he could take like a credit card number over the phone if needed. But anyway, this is back on Simon. So this is Simon's inbox. Based on posting the invoice, he received an email here with all the details that he can scroll down and look through. And ultimately, he has a link here to pay online. So that gets us back here where some of this information can auto-populate from the account and billing information. So Simon's going to go ahead and look over all this stuff and click credit card payment. So I need to enter some quick details here.
And notice here that AutoPay would save these details, but Simon could save time using a password manager if desired for these one-time payments. Note that this is a hosted payment site, tokenized and secure, so no personal identifiable information is saved, and multiple payment gateways available that can be connected to it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm entering my payment information. This is going to process in the background here. I got everything entered and submitted, and eventually this is going to load back and return and show me that the payment was successful. There we go. Thank you. So the last thing to do then would be for Oscar to go back and check this. If we refresh the invoice here, we're going to see that the payment status has updated to paid, which is great. So we got that right here. So we've kind of tracked that from start to end, from quote to invoice. Last thing we wanted to demonstrate was back with Petra. She has this order to cash health dashboard that I mentioned here, and this gives a lot of terrific insights. So we have components here such as large outstanding invoices, slowest paying customers, unbilled work orders, a lot of valuable things you can add on here. And again, all of this data really gives us fuel for AI to give us insights and recommendations as we talked through earlier in the panel discussion. All right, so in closure here, we have shown how quote line items carry forward into order and work order line items during field service, and then into invoice line items as part of billing, where all that linkage is traceable through Salesforce and enabled through just configuration of the Salesforce Revenue Cloud and field service modules. I want to point out too that while this use case was specific to a manufacturing scenario, it's just as applicable to any industry that leverages at-home or on-site services. All right, back to Esam and Erica.
Eric, that was awesome. What I really love there is that the only typing you did was entering in the payment and the data just flowed all the way downstream. That's Nirvana. And I think it kind of illustrates what we were talking about, or like normalizing the data and then using that for insight and analytics along the way. So Esam, a customer's interested, how do they engage Diabsolute if there's interest in optimizing this type of process? And then I want to get to some questions, because a couple questions did come in during the demo.
Perfect, and that's a great question. So from a Diabsolute perspective, we are ready to support you in your next digital transformation project, connecting the dots between field service and billing by engaging with you in a scoping session to determine your objectives, your current ecosystem, and how the solution will impact your upstream and downstream applications. What you see on the screen is one of the artifacts that we deliver as part of the sales cycle, and it will be part of the proposal that we will deliver to the client. And I'll pass it back to you, Greg.
Yeah, awesome. So a question came in that I want to read, and I think Esam and Eric, you're probably the ones who would answer this. So do you have experience integrating with external ERP systems? We currently run Oracle Cloud ERP, and that's where our billing happens. Esam, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Short answer is yes, we can. And as a matter of fact, we have extensive experience in integrating and connecting the dots with various external systems, including but not limited to Oracle, SAP, Deltek, and what have you. And we can do that either using Salesforce MuleSoft as a middleware or a tool of your choice.
Yeah, I think there's a good call out there that we're not looking to replace an ERP function here, that we're really looking to automate the data so that by the time it gets to ERP, it doesn't require human intervention. That's kind of this normalizing the process.
And that's
Um,
100% the case, Greg. Actually, with most of our clients, we don't replace their ERP, we connect to it.
Right. Excellent. Thanks, Assam. And I'll just remind the audience, if you want to ask a question, use the Q&A tab, but we also have another one in here. So we currently use Salesforce Field Service. We didn't know you had a billing application. Shame on me. That's perhaps me not doing my job. What are the biggest risks? What are the things to watch out for a sales field service to billing implementation? So Assam, why don't you tackle that? And then Eric, I'd love to hear from you here as well, since you've have kind of architected this type of solution.
I think there are a couple of common challenges that we see with such implementations. One of which Eric will touch on, is the change management. I think the other one that I can think of is basically having a business design review or a design workshops that captures not only one stakeholder but everyone in the process. And I'm not talking about the entire organization. It's a matter of nominating certain individuals from each of the departments so that we can speak to them, we can have a discussion and look at the process at a high level rather than just looking at the silos. Our job as the Absolute, and I recall my attendance to TSIA at a conference that I went to, is breaking silos. It's all about breaking those internal silos and connecting the dots. And you'll hear that word a lot when you engage with us, connecting the dots, breaking the silos. That's what we believe in. That's what we push our clients to do.
Yeah.
Eric?
Eric, any thoughts?
So we really do believe that businesses should have a solid change management methodology in place, and indeed we do. At the Absolute, it helps us identify the appropriate strategy for the program. It really covers everything from coaching to engagement to communication to training and readiness. And obviously all of this, of course, too, fuels adoption, which is absolutely critical to the success of the program.
Yeah. And I actually want to call out that asset that you showed, Assam, of that sort of architecture that just emphasize that that's a pre-sales. So we just recently did this with you all at a construction company that is all field service based. And I can sort of talk to what we did with DiAbsolute during the pre-sales engagement, right? We had the operations and field service team in the room, we had finance in the room, and essentially what we needed to prove is that we could capture the data all the way through the service process. And then at the end, finance could trust the data that was coming out of the process and have the confidence that that could be passed in an automated fashion, into the ERP system. But after a bill being presented to the client, I think they're going live in the next 90 days or so. We're looking.
That's true.
With the Absolute. Yeah.
That's true.
So I'm just monitoring. Looks like there's one question in your example of using generative AI to create site visit documentation for field technicians. Is this something that is currently viable? Does Einstein handle this? And how is the model trained to accomplish this?
I'll take that one. So it is viable, and it is through Einstein GPT, or now just Einstein for field service. So you prompt it, you ground it with certain information that you put in that tells it how to produce the type of document that you're looking for. So by giving it those instructions, it can really refine itself and produce what you need. But having that core of data that you've collected from the site and how you want it structured and organized, you can even set up templates for this type of thing too that you can reuse. But you'd set up a combination of those types of things to help it really build these things off of the rules that you've set ahead of time.
Yep. So we ground with customer data, and can use external models or internal large language models to accomplish that. Absolutely viable, and would encourage you to reach out afterwards. Let's see. I'm just monitoring the Q&A here. I don't see any additional questions coming in. So, Eric?
I did see something, Greg. So it was more field service oriented. So how intelligent is the scheduling, like including personnel competencies? Can it handle same day changes, multi-stage jobs, crew work? Maybe this is one for you, Stephen.
Yeah, it sounds like a good one for me. Definitely very intelligent. And there's a range of intelligence that you can apply. So it depends on the nature of where you're at in your organization, but you can go completely automated, same day type of scheduling. Yeah, absolutely. Being able to push in work, understand prioritization, understand the individuality, as I mentioned before, is key. Short, mid, long cycle, all in the same instance of the solution, is absolutely a part of what is being provided, and part of the long cycle, often crewing. It's also mid and short cycle, but crew management, being able to pull together crews, aggregate skills, competencies to support the allocation, the automated allocation of crew resources, is part of what's provided. But some great bells and whistles in there as well. I mentioned bundling before. I think it's an underused capability within the product set, but being able to intelligently couple work so you can send out a resource, a crew to handle multiple activities rather than having multiple visits and multiple truck rolls to support. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, actually, we got one more question in the queue here. If we have needs in this area, how much time, effort would this require pre-sales? So Assam, I think that falls into your court. How much time would it take for a client to sort of do the scoping engagement to produce the asset, that architecture asset that you share?
Sure thing. So typically what we do is we have a scoping session of up to 90 minutes to figure out the customer's requirements and coming up with a solution or a system flow architecture that reflects the future state. And we basically provide a budgetary proposal after that within a couple of days. So it's a very short cycle for us to engage with you. Obviously, if you want to see more to it, demos and whatnot, then we're more than happy to support you with that engagement along with our partners at Salesforce.
Yeah, demos and prototypes are really a core part of our pre-sales engagement to show you what it could look like in a future state. Erica, any other questions in the queue?
No, not at all. I think we did that, and just in time too, with a few minutes to give back to people. So I'd like to thank you, especially to our speakers. Thank you, Greg, for attending with us today. Thank you for attendees for participating in today's webinar. As we mentioned at the beginning and throughout, the recording will be made available to you within the next 24 hours by email. We'll also be sharing the link that Essam mentioned to our full demo boost for this multi-cloud SFS to billing solution. Thank you, everyone. It was really a great webinar. I appreciate the panelists' time and our attendees. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.